You're listening to Xsgaming Podcast, a podcast for gamers by gamers, with your hosts Xander, Skullion, and James Gruesome, bringing you something old, something new, and a little bit of nostalgia too.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever time you guys are checking this out, and welcome to another episode of Xsgaming Podcast. This is episode 107. We're recording this on the 9th of September. That just made me think of the Sega Dreamcast 9999. I'm one of your hosts, Xander Skullion, and joined with me is my wonderful co-host, Mr. James Gruesome. What's up?
Hello, everybody. Wherever you are, I hope you are in a good place. Whenever you may be listening to this, there are lots of crazy weather things going on all over the country. And, to anyone who's been affected, if you're listening, I hope everything's okay. You just got to look ahead because it is some scary stuff. I myself, just recently, as of yesterday, turned 39, much like when we started, was right around my birthdays. I'm cusping on to 40. It's been a crazy week. I've been working so much before, and now I actually am forced to take days off from work now. Which is a little better. I have some more people at work I trust to take my place, though I can never be truly replaced at work. Going on from last weekend, Labor Day. I hope you all had a good holiday. I had a different experience. My cat, as I've mentioned before, Havoc, on the show had been kind of sick, and it was her time last weekend. It was very sad, though I knew it was coming. I know many of y'all have pets, and many people have experienced that as a tough thing to go through. I did know it was coming, and I was definitely, I knew it was her time. I always say pets have a luxury we as humans don't always get of getting to go, or someone, choosing or knowing it is time for us to go. But on a happy note, too, very soon after, I didn't think it would be that soon, I have another little kitty. It just happened. Now, I personally wouldn't ask somebody the day after their pet passed away if they're ready for another, but some people do, and sometimes that just works out. And someone asked my wife. She happened to go check it out. I saw some pictures of it. I didn't know. She told me she's bringing it home. I was excited. I was going to the store. I was getting new stuff. It's been a crazy experience. I've not had a kitten. She's 3 months old, so she's not like a baby, but she's a decent size. It's been like 15. Havoc was 15, so I haven't had a kitten in 15 years. And man, the energy, for people to tell me I should be having a kid, I'm like, no, dude, I'm too tired for that. The kitten is wearing me out, but it's been a blast, man. I've been able to play, throwing mice, little just pieces of paper. They'll play with anything. She really has been like a blessing. Everything's been so much less sad. I look forward to coming home and I go play with little Cleo, which is her name. If anybody watched Parks and Rec, one of the characters in there, Ben, he's obsessed with this band Letters to Cleo from the 90s, kind of like an alt-rock college band. And me and my wife have been watching lots of Parks and Rec, and she came up with the idea of Cleo. So that is her name, Cleo Kitty, and sometimes we mess up and call her Chloe. But, it's something that starts with a C. She doesn't know it either way at the moment. But, it's been really fun. And before I said I didn't have as much time to play games because, I wanted to hang out with my elderly, sicker cat, make sure she's eating. And now I've got to play a little bit more, but now it's like, I got to play with the kitten too. So whatever it is, my cat's just pretty much going to consume my life, and I play when I can. But, other than that, I hope everyone's doing okay. I'm doing great, and should be a fun episode today.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And of course, like James mentioned earlier, anyone who's listening, we've had some really severe weather. It's been kind of hectic for myself. We were actually going to record the other night, and I just stressed myself out so much. I was like, I just don't feel like recording because, we had Hurricane Irma, which is, as we're recording this, is going over Florida. But, around this time last week, we had no idea where it was going to go, and it was a Category 5, the strongest hurricane recorded in Atlantic Ocean history. So, yeah, we always talk about the weather. This is something to talk about. So,
and you definitely, you're down near the coast, and it was heading up for us. I didn't even realize till my wife informed me. I'm like, why is everybody freaking out? And she's like, it's coming here. This was as of last Thursday or so when it was scheduled still to be a Category 1 by the time it hit. But that could still be bad, especially like I said, Xander's down near the coast. It's always a little bit more brutal down that way, of course, being near the ocean. But just it was really scary. Nobody knew what was going on, and it seems to be passing us by. But the thing with weather is you never really know, so it still is best no matter what to be prepared. I see the clips of people leaving Florida, and man, dude, it's like my heart goes out to that. And a lot of people stayed, and I don't blame them because sometimes you could just get stuck. Nobody can get gas. You're supposed to just go somewhere else where you could try to board up and stay in your house. I can't imagine to know what that's like. But if you left, I don't blame you. If you stayed, I don't blame you, and I hope everything ends up okay for everybody. Also in Texas, just the aftermath of everything going on.
Oh yeah,
this stuff is insane, man. It's
this
scary.
This last month has been just insane. It all started with a fucking solar eclipse. Damn it,
dude. That's it, man. That probably is the factor of it all, man. I mean, you just got to hunker down. Hopefully, like I said, just prepare, and hopefully, at the end of the day, Ray gets through it with as little hurt and loss as possible. I can't imagine, what it's like, but enough with the bad stuff. We shall move on to some funner things in life.
Indeed. Some video games. And, not a whole lot gaming-wise news has been going on. I mean, we had PAX that just happened, and they showed some new previews of some games that are coming out, some games that I'm really interested in. One of the games that they're coming out with that I'm really excited about is they're making a remake. It's kind of foreshadow of what our episode is going to be about. They're making a remake, The Secret of Mana. It's going to be released on the PS4. And man, that game, Secret of Mana is one of those games I never really played a whole lot. I played a little bit of it and I really enjoyed it, but I never beat it. And just seeing the remake and seeing how it looks, I'm like, dude, I'm really stoked about this. It was like last weekend we had so many games that were coming out. We had The Secret of Mana that was being talked about. Also some Yakuza news. And you guys know we're big fans of this series. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is coming out, which is the remake of Yakuza 2, which is really awesome. They're also making a Yakuza Online game. And well, we could talk about this, James, because I saw that, and you brought up a good point that you weren't sure if we were actually going to be getting the online game.
Even the last I had heard, this might have changed. Even Kiwami, because a little bit of that I think was a leak on one of the sites that wasn't quite supposed to come out. It got announced a little bit early. Kiwami, I believe, as of now, really is still not officially announced for the U.S. I do think it's going to happen. I told my brother EJ, he used to always want the HD on the Wii U that had come out in Japan, and I was like, dude, we are never going to get that. And I told him, I was like, I'm as confident that we're going to get Kiwami 2 as I was unconfident that we would get the Yakuza 1 and 2 HD on Wii U. So as much love as it's been getting, and I think even more and more, those of us the hardcore that have been playing for a while, we're always there, and more, eventually, like, say, I see you. You were flying the Yakuza flag now. I see it quite often. You're like my protege. It's awesome. Ryan Cadaver, a good friend of ours that is co-host on here lots of times too, he kept thanking me. He's like, dude, thank you so much, because I got him a copy of the game. He played it for the first time. Rob Luther from the Retro Junkies, I had sent him a copy too. Not sure if he got to play it because he recently, if you're listening, Rob, I hope you feel better. Of course, he'd had a little bit of back issues going on, so he's been hanging around with this kid. So I don't know if he got to play it yet or not, but he got a copy too, because I figured with that price of $30, man, I gotta buy like at least 3 copies, so I got me one, send a couple to some friends, I keep turning people on to it, and everybody loves it.
I like the fact that you bought multiple copies because you want to spread the love, not just because you're like this madman collector being like, I need one to play and one to stay sealed and one to put in this like safe in case something happens.
Our friend Justinus Maximus Revenus Spectre, he had commented on that when I said I bought 3. He's like, did you buy one to keep sealed? And it was like, nope. Hopefully they all get played. I was just like, at that price, man, I was like, I got to, because I know people will love it when they play it. There's so many people you can judge and see what kind of games they like, and you just, so many people I know that have gone into it really love it. So more and more people are playing it now that it's, more readily available, especially this game, bargain price, $30. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't tried it yet, it's totally worth it. And it's awesome to see that. So Kiwami 2, I think we'll get. The online one, I think it's going to go the ways of kind of like the samurai styled ones, Kenzan, and there was another one too, Japan only. They'd be very cool. And I mean, honestly, with those, I have okay, I'm not going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen, but it's possible. I think there could be maybe some kind of, online only release of those in the future, as long as it keeps doing good. But for now, Zero Kiwami, what an awesome special edition for 6 that's coming out. Yeah, man, shot glasses, just, man, it's such a nice set, and it's still a great price. I can't remember if it's either 80 or 90.
Yes, $80. $80.
Yeah. That'll be coming out next, I think it's, around next spring. But it's up for pre-order now. And that's just another good sign, too, that it's such a cool pre-order pack. I really have nothing. For me, as I mentioned before, I didn't want to beat Part 4 because I thought that was the end. And ever since that, I've got, 5 on digital, 0, Kiwami, 6. It's like 4 more games since then when I had so little hope. For me being such a huge fan, it's almost like an overdose. I have so much. This just keeps, coming and coming. I have Kiwami, of course. I've yet to even start it because I'm still playing 0 because that's just my game. So, I got to take my time. But as many can see, I've had friends that have beaten 0, beaten Kiwami. You can see where you can spend a little bit of time or a lot of time. It's such a versatile series. Either way, you have a good time playing it. Man, it's really awesome just to see it. Man,
Yeah.
I can't really be happier. It's insane.
Well, it's funny, because when we first started the podcast, and I remember you mentioned the title, and you were ready for Yakuza 5 to come out, and it wasn't coming out. And for a while, you were boycotting anything Sega-related.
Oh, yeah, there was that, too.
You weren't getting anything Sega-related, and you're like, I want fucking Yakuza 5. I want this. And you did it for, I think it was like 2 years that we were doing the show until they finally released it digitally. Maybe it was 2 or 3 years, but the thing about it is like, I played a little bit of Kiwami, and I'll talk more about that with, games we've been playing. But my friend Jason, Black Metal Gamer, he played Yakuza 0. And the Yakuza series, because I'm in this group chat on Facebook. I talked to my friend Jason, Justin Down Phoenix, Chris Bio Phoenix, John Retro Bro. We all talk on Facebook on our little group page. And I've been telling these guys, of course, BioPhoenix Chris, he's already played Yakuza. He knows it's awesome. But I was telling the guys, I'm like, you guys need to play this. This is fucking awesome. You guys need to play it. And it was just kind of like one of those things, like they knew I was talking legit, but they're just like, yeah, we'll check it out. I got to play this. I got to play that. Well, Jason finally sat down and was like, all right, I'll play 0. He played it, and now, he messaged me the other day, and he's like, dude, you got me so hooked on this fucking series. And I'm like, right?
See, it's all the downfalls. Like, you got it from me. Granted, I talked to those guys too, but you've been really pushing the Yakuza Love. Mm-hmm. And it's just all a big flow down. Like I said, everybody that's really played it has just, loved it. A lot of us, if you grew up in that era, I still compare, River City Ransom. If you love Shenmue, even though I said Shenmue sucks, which it does compared to Yakuza still, if you like Shenmue, River City Ransom, it's that combination of great story, the beat 'em up gameplay, whether you're a Final Fight fan, anything like that. My wife, I always give credit to when there's certain games that she kind of likes watching me play. She happened
Mm-hmm.
to come home in the middle of me playing Yakuza, and she even got sucked into like the story.
Oh, yeah.
of it, just amazing story, fun gameplay. You can walk around and just BS around. It's really got a little bit of everything. And even Yakuza 5, if you play it, it's got rhythm game crap and driving. So it really encompasses the whole aspect of so many games. All done really well. Even the little minigame crap, whether it's golfing or the batting cages, like everything is done. Nothing's like shortchanged. It's at least adequate to very good.
And I do want to say, because a lot of people who listen or talk to me on Facebook, that they've been seeing me talk about the Yakuza series, and they're like, well, where should I start? Here's the wonderful thing, and I cannot stress this enough. The wonderful thing about the Yakuza games is the fact that you can start anywhere. And what I mean by that is, I played 0, and then I went to 3. And when I went to go play 3, I was like, I played a little bit of the first one on PS2, because I bought that about a year ago, around this time last year. I bought it, played a little bit of it, and I was like, you know what, 0 is about to come out. I'll just play 0 and start there. So when I was playing 3, what's cool is you can go into the options and you can watch what happened previously in the series. Like what happened, like say I was playing 3, I could see what happened in Yakuza 1 and 2. And that way I would be up to date when I'm starting 3. And also it's really good in case, maybe you haven't played Yakuza 1 or 2 in a couple of years, and you got 3 and you're going to play that, or a couple months. If you guys are anything like me, I forget stuff that happened on television shows like a season ago. Like Stranger Things, season 2 is coming out next month. I'm probably going to have to rewatch Stranger Things because I forgot everything that happened mostly on that show. So it's a really good refresher, and it's also one of those games that you could play for a couple of months. You can put back down, you can play something else, and you can pick it up, and you don't forget where you're at. I cannot stress how much I love that aspect. I love it when games do that. When you can put a game, you sit it down for a couple months, you pick it back up, and it's like you never put it down again. So many games don't have that feeling. Great example, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. I played it for 6 hours. I put it down, started playing something else on my GameCube, picked it back up, and when I picked it back up later, Link was in the middle of the ocean. I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing in the game, so I had to start all over again. You don't have that with Yakuza. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a very good, detailed city. You deal with a couple of cities throughout the series. I've been playing since part 1. If you start with 0, Kamurocho, it's in every game, and somehow it manages to not get old. It's a very familiar feeling, and each game will add another little area. Even myself, as long as I've played it, I have ongoing fear of when I stop, whether it's half a year. Yakuza 0 I actually had a break from for a couple of months, and I always have ongoing fear of man, what if I'm not gonna love it like I always did, which is stupid because I've been loving that game for 10 years. And every time it's just, right back. It's right back at home. It's kind of like my little zen place. If I'm ever in a bad mood, I feel bad, I can really play that game. I've mentioned lots of times I play it during the holidays because it's very stressful for me at work. And sometimes I'm not too into Christmas. Sometimes I hate it. Last year was the first time I didn't. But lots of times, even in Yakuza, I ran into a time where it was Christmas time during Yakuza 5, and it was actually very nice. It was the first Christmas in a long time. I was like, well, I'm not really into it, but this is not bad. And it's I'm here and playing Yakuza, and everything's okay. To me, it's just a very zen, calming feeling, and it's just nice because, like I said, it's a small town. It gives you that small town home feel, but you learn it good. It's still a very detailed small town that feels very large. I don't need a huge Grand Theft Auto map that I just get completely lost with all these different cities. Get a little bit more detailed area, and considering so much is on foot, you really get to learn it, your shortcuts. It's really not a bother, to go through certain areas. It's just it's very cool, nice, it is. It's a good calming zen game. Everybody should play it.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm looking up a story right now that I wanted to talk about before we go into break. And I think this would be a good discussion because, this past weekend was PAX, and they were showcasing a bunch of different games. And one of the games they showcased was Cuphead. Okay, now Cuphead is an Xbox One PC exclusive. And there was a game reporter / game reviewer. And I say he's a reviewer because even though he's a reporter, he does write articles talking about games and giving his opinion on games. To me, that is a review. His name is Dean, and I hope I don't mispronounce his last name, is Takaishi. He played Cuphead, and there's a video of it. You can look it up on YouTube. Just look up Game Journalist Fails at Cuphead. Just type that in on YouTube. It's a 26-minute video of him playing Cuphead and just completely sucking. I mean, not even like, playing it and it's just like, oh man, he's just not really good at the game. The guy could not get past the practice mode. He could not run and jump at the same time. It was cringeworthy. And there's 26 minutes of it. He finally gets past the practice mode and the how to play part and goes through the first stage and this plays horribly. Now, the reason why I asked this is, James, I'm not sure if you watched the video, but this brought up a good topic where people were wondering, should, gaming journalists or game reviewers, should they be good at video games? Because that is their profession. What do you think about this?
Yeah, that's the one that kind of makes me think, because when you see a guy like this, you kind of expect them to know something of what's going on. Cuphead, I thought, looked very cool. It's one of the few games I'm kind of sad, I won't get to play. Because it just, it had that old cartoon look, very awesome. I expect that. To me, that gives a bad, it kind of makes you think, like, does this have bad gameplay? I think that's kind of a detriment to, the game developers. Because you kind of expect someone – I'm sorry, a game like that, I figure basic platformer, if you've – I don't know, if you played anything, it looks like you should be able to go into that game and have a good time just from looking at, screenshots and pictures. Is pretty much all I've seen. But no, I mean, I think you should have some type of basic grasp. I mean, to me, I count myself off as kind of terrible at, like, a lot of games. I'm forever playing on easy, whether it's just because I want an easier experience or because I just suck. But I think if I was in that profession, that you should be able to handle the basic grasp of that. I mean, it'd be different. I could see, these, Dead Souls, Dark Souls, whatever it is. I haven't played it because it's too hard.
Dark Souls, yeah.
Bloodborne, I played a little bit of that, which I heard gets very hard. I did like what I played, but dude, I would think a game like Cuphead, it just looks so fun and cartoony. I would imagine like a child, could play that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword of, by him being bad at it. Is it just, him being terrible, or is it, bad game mechanics?
Yeah. I was about to say, you watched the video, and it's just him being bad at it. And I was like, because, I mean, I'm not familiar with this guy. I know after this video, I did some research, and he pretty much had a pretty shady past in the beginning of doing journalism, where he would give a game a really bad score because he didn't understand certain things about it. Like he did a review a couple of years back of the first Mass Effect, and he was talking about how bad Mass Effect was, but he didn't realize that you could level up weapons in the game. Stuff like that. So I think it was pretty much this guy. When you watch the practice mode and you see like the buttons he's supposed to be pushing, and he's like, it's like you run and push B to jump, and when you push B, you push Y to do like this dash move, and he just doesn't get it. And here's my thing, like, I don't think that game reviewers or journalists should be like masters of the craft, like they're not speedrunners. They're not like no death runs or anything like that. But they should at least know a little bit about mechanics, and at least a little bit know a little bit more about it, in the sense that, they are professionals. They're getting paid to do this. I mean, you wouldn't take your car to a car mechanic and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a novelist, mechanic. I just started doing this last week. That makes you kind of nervous. You like, is this guy going to cut my brakes because they were in the way of him changing a carburetor or something? So I mean, like
you being terrible at it like that could give the person to give a bad review, and I mean, like I said, that goes back in turn to like that's not fair. If you're terrible, it's just proof positive though. Like there are people in certain fields that are just bad at their job.
Yeah.
And you should be able, I mean, like if your specialty, maybe this guy plays RPGs, he should do only RPGs. I equate it to there was a horror magazine, Rue Morgue, and one time there was a review of the Insane Clown Posse. No matter what you think about them, this person that did the review of them was definitely down on them. Did not like them.
Oh, I thought you meant he was like down with the clown.
Oh no, he was not down with the clown. He was someone who was against the clown. And in turn, he said, "This is at the time, it's quite a few years ago, 30-something-year-olds in makeup jumping around." Well, Rue Morgue did a lot of horror rock bands, a lot of death metal, and I'm sorry, that's a lot of 30-something-year-old dudes in makeup.
Yeah,
you know it as well as I do, and to me, ICP should have someone who is into ICP at least, or maybe respects what they do, review that. Not someone who's definitely anti them, because there are certain just kind of genre of music. I think you need to have somebody more in tune with that. So, maybe this guy's specialty was some certain type of game. It sounds like it was nothing, and he's just in the wrong field. He should maybe be doing food reviews or something like that, because I mean a basic platformer should be open to anybody, but like I said, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's more of a MMO RPG guy. I don't know. He should be sticking to those. It's just that to me it's a detriment to the developer, to someone who could be, looking for an honest review on this game. Because, I mean, how can you write about this game if you're just terrible and don't even understand it? That's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I mean, and you brought up a good point when you were talking about Rue Morgue. I mean, there's plenty of reviewers that I've seen in the past that, when you watch reviewers, like say you watch someone on YouTube or you read articles, you kind of get to know these people. And I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of people take reviewers and these kind of journalists kind of to heart. Not so much gospel, but kind of being like, oh, well, so-and-so said about this game, so I don't know if I want to play it or not. Me personally, I play whatever I want. If a game's getting a bad review, I'll still check it out. Just because, I want to have my own opinion. And, I like, say, Alien Colonial Marines, they always say that game's completely horrible. If I was to ever want to play it, I would just, maybe get a really cheap copy of it or rent it on Redbox, but...
we all ask our friends at times, too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you look to reviewers as that friend, where we all have certain friends could be like, hey, yeah, that's all right. Some friends you'd be like, oh, they love it. You'd be like, I might think it's okay. But we all have that, certain friends that know that we like certain types of genres that can give us their opinion, and we can base that off what we know about them and kind of base it into our own opinion if it's something we want to try or not.
Exactly. And with that same sense, though, I mean, you get to know these people, and there's times I watch reviewers or I read comments, and I can tell someone's like very like anti-Nintendo or anti-Microsoft, anti-Sony, and I'll read those, and to me, I think a good reviewer should be completely non-biased in the sense that, if they're going to go and hate on Nintendo, they should do the same thing for Sony, same thing for Microsoft. It should be, hate all around. There should be no, get free passes on this. If a game sucks, talk about it. If a game rocks, talk about it. But, I mean, when it all comes down to it, because we're about to go on break, so I'm just going to close with this. When it all comes down to it, I think that reviewers that are getting paid, and this is their professional career, like I said, they should know their craft. Just like anyone else. When I did plumbing, I had to know how to read a tape measure. I had to know how to cut pipe. I had to do this and had to do that. If I didn't, then I would have been fired. And I'm not wanting this guy to be fired. I'm not saying that, but maybe he needs to step back and play some more games and stop, opening up loot crates. Just saying.
I think too. Sometimes if you could have to me, the perfect thing would be a three-way review.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that either loves that series or genre, someone that hates that series or genre, or someone that in the middle is kind of like new to that, maybe game in particular. Three-way like that would be, a really good way to kind of see. You could get the total aspect because, some games you just need that person who has that expert view that loves it, and sometimes you need that person who's, maybe if they hate it, there's some aspect they actually like this time, and then that new person to it. Like, that's kind of the perfect aspect to everything if you can get, but that's probably too much to ask.
But no, I agree. A lot of old game magazines used to do that. When they do a review, they'd have like two different people. They'd have one guy that would cover the article, and then one guy had his own little column, and he'd be like, well, Peter doesn't like this game, but this is why I like this game. So
you'll still get that. Game Informer, has their different ones sometimes. Sometimes even people don't like Game Informer, you can still get the little, different views that to have the different guys and a couple of different ones reviewing, one certain game. It's still cool to see, a couple different sides of, any game, no matter what it may be.
Indeed. Now, what we're going to do, guys, we're going to step back for a couple of seconds, or a couple of minutes, I should say, for our little music break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite, and maybe not so much favorite, but we're going to be talking about our favorite gaming remakes. What makes a remake? We even had some comments from you guys on our Facebook group page. So sit back, relax, guys, and we'll be right back. And we are back, guys. That was some remix music of Super Hang On for the Sega Genesis. One of my favorite games, one of my favorite racing games on the Genesis. And yeah, we're going to talk about video game remakes. Now, before we get into like some of our favorites and maybe not so favorites, let's talk about what makes a remake. Because, you know, you have the remakes and now you have the HD remasters. You know, HD remasters became really popular during the 8th gen launch. We started seeing a lot more of them. I remember at one point I was getting pissed off at all these HD remakes. Now, not so much, because we do have some, you know, originality. It's not like we're buying everything from the last gen. But, James, in your opinion, what makes a remake as opposed to an HD remaster?
You know, I think, man, you were on the same level lots of times with, you know, a remake being, you know, more of a ground up, whether it's the same game, just some kind of overhaul in some sense. Sometimes, you know, you can take into account the reboots. Sometimes people want to reboot a series a certain way. And it all kind of falls in different ways. You know, we do have our, you know, HD remakes and upgrades, some that can be really good, you know, but for the most part, and, you know, like I said, just so you know ahead of time, you know, we're probably going to cross over in between some. It's kind of a open-ended term, depending on who you talk to. Because me and Xander are mostly on the same page with it more being a new form of something old. And it will cross over, but it's just, you know, that's the most time. When you take an old title, you know, with new format, new system. Sometimes, too, it depends on amount of time in between the series. So it's kind of it's a very open-ended one. So it's going to be kind of fun to see where we go with these and what different titles come up, you know?
Yeah, you know, I'm the same way. You know, I feel like it's something that has to be built from the ground up. A great example, and today it was released. This is, I looked it up on mobile games on This Day in Gaming. Back in 1994, it looks like. 94? No, 1995. Crash Bandicoot was released for the Sony PlayStation. And recently we just got the Crash Trilogy. And that's a completely remade game. It has, you know, the same engine, but they redid the graphics all the way. Now, HD Remaster would be kind of like they just take everything from that game, maybe up the resolution, maybe fix the frame rate, make it a little better, but it's...
Yeah, like Last of Us. Last of Us from PS3 to PS4.
Yeah, that's an HD remaster. It's not a remake. You know, but you take something like Crash Bandicoot, or, you know, even something like the Final Fantasy VII remake, which Final Fantasy just turned 20 years old. Final Fantasy VII's getting a remake, and that is a remake. It's not an HD remaster, because they are incorporating new things, which we will see that in remakes, but it's a completely redone game with the same concept, the same
20
story.
years,
yeah,
20 years gap, you're pretty much guaranteed that is a remake right there.
Yeah. So, let's talk about some of our favorite remakes. Now, one that I was thinking about, and I'm like, well, to me, this would classify as a remake, and it's probably one of my favorite, you know, compilations on the Super Nintendo, is Super Mario All-Stars. You know, it was Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, and it had the Lost Levels, aka Super Mario 2 in Japan. And they completely redid it. It had new palette of colors. It had new sprites. It had new sound, new music. It was really something special. And you know, sometimes we'll see remakes that come out that kind of, you know, re-revolutionize the way we loved about that video game. You know, and that was a great example of it.
Also, too, just a really good compilation with taking some of the, you know, best Nintendo games ever, you know, onto the next system. And if you had that one cartridge, too, that also had Super Mario World, just, man, it was like a ton of games. And to have them, like you said, with the new sprites, last times Luigi had his own sprite, some of the earlier games, instead of just being more of a, you know, palette swap with the colors. And, you know, that was one that you could just see. And it's one of those ones today, even when you play it, you can still see, some differences. It's really cool. And I mean, just thinking of Mario 2, I kind of got to give it to the GBA.
Oh yeah.
Any of their Super Mario advances, whether it be 2, 3, a lot of them, man, they added so much stuff. Huge sprites. The part 2 is really crazy from playing the NES version of Super Mario 2, which in its sense and on its own was a little bit of a takeoff with the Doki Doki Panic, as everybody knows, kind of like its own game taken off from that. But the one on the GBA just really added a lot of differences to it. And one of the things I heard was the I don't know which advance it was. It was the one that was Super Mario 3. They added in some of the Game Boy, the one with the cards and the scanner.
Oh, the E-card, yeah, the E-scanner.
Yes, the E-card. I heard if you get the version, I think that's one of the last ones that was on like the Wii U, when they started putting out some of the GBA games, it has all those extra levels from the e-reader added on to it.
Oh, wow.
Which itself is really cool. But, man, they just added so much to that. It was a really cool one. A favorite of mine, and I got to say, this one turned me onto the series because it was one that I really kind of despised for so long. Tomb Raider.
Oh, yeah.
I've hated Tomb Raider from the beginning. I didn't understand it. Like, I got Resident Evil. I was like, I understand this. Like, this is awesome. Tomb Raider, I just thought kind of sucked. Every iteration of it that came through, just never really cared for it. But the last one, when they finally did that one, that came out on the PS3, and I think it's had, some HD remakes and stuff on up forward. But, man, it really, to me, that's what Tomb Raider always should have been. I think it took a little bit from Uncharted. Uncharted, I think, kind of took from Tomb Raider. And then Tomb Raider kind of took from that, and in turn became its own, new game, which just had both, two different ones in the series starting off. And I mean, as far as Tomb Raider stays in that version, I'm pretty hooked on that because it has a little bit more treasure hunting to me than Uncharted. A little bit less gunplay. I mean, you have some intense battles on there, but at the end, it's just that's just what it always should have been. It really feels like some Indiana Jones kind of stuff, and it's just such a awesome series, the one that and a lot of people loved, and the fact that I hated it for so many years and that it can just grab me in. I think that really says a lot about what the definition of like a true remake is. One that can grab in new fans that had never really cared for it before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times that a game would come out and it wouldn't have a huge success. It would almost be like a cult classic. And then the remake would come out, and new people would start playing it, and they would just fall in love with it. And I think that was a great example of it with Tomb Raider. I mean, Tomb Raider, I played Tomb Raider, and I liked some of the aspects to it. I was more of the kind of person that when I played Tomb Raider, I spent more time in the house and tried to kill my butler. That's how I played it, because the controls were very wonky. It was really weird. And then when the remake came out, it was pretty much like a complete reboot. Like, they just started from a new slate, and they were like, "This is what Tomb Raider is." That was really cool. I really liked when they did that. That was awesome. Another really good remake that I really enjoyed was I just had it in my head, and it just like fell out of my head for a second there. Let's throw it back to you, James.
Okay, I'll give you one right here. It happens. Sometimes you got to take notes, man.
I know. Usually it's all in my head.
I would be lost too. Metroid.
Ooh.
Such a classic game. So many of us, if you grew up with a Nintendo, you played Metroid, you loved it. It was still kind of spooky, that alone atmosphere. And with Metroid Zero Mission, that was one. I mean, the GBA to me is one of the kings of remakes, upgrades, as we mentioned with the Marios. Metroid Zero just took it. If you love Super Metroid, maybe you never played the first one. it took it onto a whole new, series, new system with the GBA, and it just brought it up, man. The graphics, it was the same old game, but somehow, it just added enough to it that just gave it that extra something. I mean, that was when I was able to go back and go through and actually beat it, because it's kind of questionable. I think I beat the original Metroid with a friend, but, just the graphical upgrade going through that, just, man, that one. And it really makes me look forward, to the kind of, with remakes, speaking of the Return of Samus that's coming out on 3DS.
Yeah, which I watched RGT85. I watched Sean Long's first impressions of that, and yeah, like, he was a huge fan of the Game Boy version, and playing on the DS, he's like, it feels almost like a brand new game. Like, they've added so many things to it, and that's one of the things I really look forward to with remakes. Another example that I was going to talk about, I just remembered, was, of course, Resident Evil. Resident Evil, when it was remade for the Game Boy, I'm not sorry, the GameCube. It was remade for the GameCube. Was almost like a completely new game. I mean, it had the familiar aspects. You're starting it, you're in the mansion, you're trying to find your fallen comrades and just survive. But they added so much more to the game. They added new cinematics. They added some new mechanics. They added the Crimson Heads, which the Crimson Heads were just crazy. The fact that you had to shoot the zombies in the head, you had to decapitate them in some way, or they would come back stronger and run after you like 28 days later zombies. So that was really cool. I like the fact they did that. They did the same thing with Alone in the Dark. If you remember, playing Alone in the Dark on the DOS version and then playing the PlayStation version, even though the one on PlayStation still wasn't that great, it was still really, really interesting to see what vision they may have had during the DOS period and what it looks like on PlayStation. Another really good remake is Clock Tower. Clock Tower on the Super Nintendo, and then go and play Clock Tower on the PlayStation. Oh man, it's something else.
Moving on up, yeah, within like a series, that was one, because a lot of us, sometimes we played the Super NES, or whether it was on the Famicom version a little bit afterwards, to where that one was more of a point and click. I could see moving up from that to where Clock Tower coming out after the success of Resident Evil, you had that. It was a little bit more of the survival horror, lots of running, which of course is the same with the point and click, but only this time you had use of the controller. And that was when it still had the same scary atmosphere, though. It's just something about the Scissor Man chasing you. To me, it's still one of the most dreadful things in a series. It can beat the Crimson Heads in Resident Evil. Something about Scissor Man just going after you. It was just brutal. Couple more too. I keep so in love with the GBA on this subject, but it's a really one to go after. Final Fight. That was one, always much loved in the arcade. Super NES version, Sega CD, one of the best versions of it. This one, going through it added a bit with some of the characters. You could get the version of Cody, from Street Fighter Alpha in his prison garb. Adding that little bit, and on the same level too, Double Dragon Advanced.
Oh yeah, that not enough people talk about that.
No, and I think a lot of people might have missed out on that. Definitely more if you're a fan of the arcade version, it's worth playing. But it added in, whether it was enemies, a few extra levels. It was just something. It was like the arcade plus version. That GBA took so many games that were beloved from the NES era and sometimes the Super NES, like the Final Fight, and just took them and added, just enough to them that it really was worth another playthrough, whether a graphical upgrade or sometimes you had the link capability. Because a lot of people had, GBA, me and a couple of friends of mine all got ours on the same day. So, we had that link capability. You might have had to buy, that extra little cord for that. But, it just added in so much to it. And even another one, I was a big fan of Final Fantasy Adventure on the original Game Boy, and they actually had one. I'm thinking, see, I got it in my notes, but it's jumbled up. I think it was Sword of Mana.
Yeah, Sword of Mana, which was funny because when I first got Sword of Mana, I thought it was like related to the Secret of Mana series. But then I was like, no, this is Final Fantasy Adventure.
Yeah, see, but it's all a big trick because all the Final Fantasy Adventure games were, in a sense, Mana games. So see, it's like a big joke at the end. But to me, when I played the Sword of Mana, I found that one in the box at one of my Eddie McKay, the one store I used to go to a lot. And, I think it was like $10. Just something I would have paid for just the cart anyway to check out. And, I mean, playing through it, it really felt so different. As a kid, I beat Final Fantasy Adventure in like one night, which was kind of disappointing in a sense. It was way more Zelda-like. But going through with the Mana, I mean, the graphics were so, redone. It had been so long since I played. It felt like a completely new experience with that one. And that's one of the things with the remakes sometimes is when it feels like a completely different game.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned with the Resident Evil, I mean, just in between the graphical upgrade to the fact that those, they've re-released on the PS4 that you can get with Resident Evil 0. Originally it was supposed to be a 64 game, which never came out. And going through and playing those, it is such just a new experience that that's really the heart of these games like that, is when it feels like something completely new.
Yeah, another great example was a game I really love on the Sega Master System, but I have to say, it's got two remakes that I'll get into, but Ys, Book of Vanished Omens, Ys 1 was on the Sega Master System. And if you were to play the Sega Master System version, it's very primitive. You don't even use your sword to kill enemies. You kind of just bump into the enemies and kill them that way. And they ended up remaking it on the TurboGrafx, on the TurboGrafx CD, and they, the sprites looked a lot better. The music was CD quality. They had voice acting in it. It was a totally different game. Same premises, same way of playing it, but it was just completely different. And then they released Ys Books 1 and 2 on the PSP with Chronicles of Ys. And honestly, I have to say to anybody who's wanting to get into the Ys series, because, Ys 8 just came out. And if you're like, man, I really want to get into this, this sounds really cool, get it on the PSP. Get the Chronicles of Ys Books 1 and 2. And the reason why is because it's graphically enhanced. It's more of a 3D kind of top-down playthrough. And, you're not bumping into enemies. You're actually, using your sword and stuff like that. And it's really good. And to me, that series is it rivals old school Zelda, because it's got that same kind of premises as an action RPG. And you don't really have to start with any sort of Ys. You can go with any one and play it and enjoy it. It's not a story that keeps on going out. You're just following the adventures of Adol. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. I really did enjoy that. And I mean, another PSP title that was remade that I really enjoyed was the Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. It was the remake of Mega Man X, and they redid the graphics. I believe this version you can play as Vile, which was really cool, and it was awesome. And another PSP remake. I don't know about you. Are you noticing remakes a lot on the handhelds?
As we hit that, because within, as you talk about the PSP, they had a Ghouls and Ghosts and another a Mega Man one too. I was a big fan of just the original Powered Up. That was kind of like a bumped up version of Mega Man 1.
Yeah, it was like the little chibi characters. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But I was going to talk about Dracula X Chronicles.
Oh,
dude, yeah. that remake right there is what made me go out and buy a PSP. I was working at Babbage's at the time, and the PSP had just came out, And I was like, this is cool. I was, just out of high school, so I didn't really have a whole lot of money anyway, so I did a lot of window shopping there, and I'm like, one day I'd like to have a PSP, that'd be kind of cool. But then they were like, oh, we're coming out with Castlevania Dracula X Chronicles, and it's the remake of Rondo of Blood, which was never released in the U.S. at that time. This was before even the Wii virtual shop and all that stuff. So we were getting a remake of Rondo of Blood, and plus you could unlock the original TurboGrafx CD version of Rondo of Blood and a remake of Symphony of the Night. When I say remake, they just added different voices. But they had that as like a little collection. I was like, yeah, I gotta get a PSP. So I traded in a couple of things. I ended up buying it. And yeah, that right there, that's a great freaking remake. It's, looks crazy how you can just see the way the game used to look and how it looks on Dracula X Chronicles.
Yeah, it really gives you a choice, in between, like I said. And some people didn't really care for the remake version, but at the end of the day, you got the original version too. And I mean, in between that and Symphony of the Night, that was enough. One of the more recent ones, and I became a fan of this game fairly recently, with the past few years. I had a little clone kind of a GBA looking system that had some Famicom and NES games on it, and I'd always been curious about the game Karateka. Early game, Mentor, the guy that made Prince of Persia. More people a little bit more familiar with that one. But Jeff Minter, that was his name. Karateka had a remake on the PS3, and I picked this up, and it's not really much to write home about. It's a little bit more one of those disappointing remakes. The original, and I'd played the Famicom version, was on some PCs. Really cool, smooth. If you're into any kind of martial arts games, and Prince of Persia, I put it like that. If you like both those, original Karateka is really cool to play. Whereas I said the remake was not good, and we can bring that into Prince of Persia, which so many people have played. Just very classic look, feel. And that's a game you can take into the remake sense of, into the PS2, GameCube era of when Prince of Persia came back.
Oh, yeah.
And now, I'm sure it had a couple maybe different, versions maybe on the PC along the way. But when it really came back as far as like the Sands of Time, that was one to me that really just... So many people started playing Prince of Persia after that. The running along walls, that was something that became influential, I think going forward with like Shinobi. That was one that kind of took from that. And when you look at the original Prince of Persia was very influential. And even going to its remake, that was a game that really stood the test of time. That sounds really lame. Sands of Time stood the test of time. But...
It
really did.
And you could reverse time.
Yeah, and that was another mechanic too. I mean, that one brought so much to where we see, even to where this playing on, emulators, where you might can go back or go forward. The Saturday morning cartoon collection, DuckTales. That was another game. Hey, we had a remake of that.
Yeah.
Much beloved. I thought the remake was really cool. As far as the graphics, just really looked beautiful, on level, kind of like with the Wonder Boy, as you can flip back and forth, speaking of another remake there, that's one that's just, wow. When I play that and I flip back to the old graphics, it's kind of like, ugh.
Yeah,
I feel bad that I don't want to play on the old graphics. It's like, no, I want to play on this pretty stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Wonder Boy Dragon's Trap, when they remade that, it's crazy, and that's one of the things I do like about Wonder Boy is you can push a single button and you can go into the original and you can go into the remake. They did the same thing with the Halo Anniversary Collection on Xbox 360, and that was really cool because you would sit there and you would go into Halo and you would sit there and walk around the fields and stuff like that, jump on your Warthog, and you could just push one button and you could see how much detail and how much they've completely remade that game. And did you know, I found this out recently when I was playing Wonder Boy, Did you know that you can use the same passwords that you can use on the Sega Master System? You can use that on the new HD remake.
I knew they did have an option for a password. I didn't know some of the things were like interchangeable though. That's pretty cool.
It was really cool because I was actually playing Wonder Boy on the Sega Master System on my Pi. I was playing that, and I was sitting there playing it, and I'm like, man, I want to stop playing because I'm about to get the HD remake from Limited Run. So I stopped for a little bit, and I went and started playing the new one. And of course, I start back from square one because it's a brand new it's on a different console. But I saw it had the passwords, and I'm like, you know what? I want to put in my password just to see. I put in my password. I was right where I left off on the Pi. So I went from playing the Sega Master System version on the Raspberry Pi to playing the HD remake on the PlayStation 4. I'm like, man, that is freaking cool. That is really cool right there.
Just that, like, that's just taking it a step ahead that you wouldn't even expect. Couple more just to throw out too, as far as like some NES classics. Bionic Commando was one. How they had the Rearmed.
Oh yeah.
It's been a while since I played it. I know a lot of people like that, and one that a lot of people didn't like actually was Russian Attack. They did redo one, and they had one on the PS3. I happen to kind of enjoy it. It was had a little bit more like stealth involved, where you could hide in.
Was that the remake of Bionic Commando where you looked different?
Well, the Bionic Commando was Rearmed. I mean, it had a different look to it. That was one that was on PS3, and like I said, Russian Attack was on there too. But more people liked Bionic Commando. I think I was the only one that liked Russian Attack.
Mm.
It had a lot more like kind of stealth kills where you could hide in the background and jump out. It was kind of poorly reviewed. It was one of those. I dug it though.
It was probably the guy who played Cuphead.
Yeah.
That guy. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to read some comments from the Xsgaming Podcast group page, and I'm going to read some of their favorite remakes. They left their comments, and if you guys are listening and you're not a part of the Facebook group page, you can add us on facebook.com/group/Xsgaming Podcast. And after I read that, we'll mention like maybe our favorite remake. Just one of our favorite remakes, and then we'll get into games we've been playing. So while I'm reading these comments, when we can comment on that, James, you can kind of think of that game. So yeah, I was asking, I was like recording a new episode tonight, so I'm going to want to ask, what's your favorite video game remake? Michael Burhan, he says Wonder Boy by far just has it all, and we mentioned that is a fantastic remake. Chris, aka BioPhoenix, says actually changed my answer to the Strider reboot. That's another really good one. The new Strider, that game's really good. That's a really good game. Yeah,
another good old I think of it as an NES game. Of course, arcade and Genesis title too, brought back up into new form. Very hard though. Very hard.
Oh yeah.
I give it a thumbs down for toughness.
And our good friend Jason, Black Metal Gamer, he says Resident Evil 1 hands down, which I have to agree, man. That was the game I got for my GameCube when I first got GameCube. I bought the remake of Resident Evil, and
that's one. And I hope too. There's so many rumors about Resident Evil 2. I think it's still going to be made, but some people say, will it have first person like RE7? Will it just be like a sweet remake like 1? I don't know. Like that's one that's kind of exciting to see what's actually going to happen with it.
I'm hoping a little bit of both. That'd be kind of cool. That added a lot of replay value. Like you could play it in third perspective, like the way the game played originally. Maybe definitely get rid of the tank controls. Whatever they do, I don't want tank controls.
Yeah, no, there won't be that. That might be like an option, but no, you won't have to worry about that.
And our good friend, the video game champion of the world, of the universe, Skip Rogers. He was just trolling us. He said Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Highlight.
Worst game ever. Super Highlight or Virtua Highlight. Ugh. That's worse than Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I give that a thumbs down just for the Hyde part. I hate that game.
And Tyler, he says Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. That right there, I didn't even remember that until you put it down, because I remember I did pick up the Omega Ruby. I picked it up and I played a little bit of it, and I ended up trading it in for something else because I was just like, I'm not into Pokemon like I used to be. But that was a completely remade game. I mean, honestly, it played like a whole new Pokemon. It was really cool.
I know he's played those more. I just finally, played one of the earlier Game Boy versions, and of course Pokemon Snap. So Pokemon Snap. Yeah,
Snap.
And but I know Tyler definitely knows more about those, so I would definitely trust his opinion as far as remakes for the Pokemon games.
And Joshua, aka Game Grinder, also a big shout out to Game Grinder, Game Tenants podcast, really good show. He said Resident Evil for the GameCube, Tomb Raider Anniversary, Wonder Boy, Dragon's Trap, off the top of my head. I mean, I agree with all that. Yeah, that's right. Tomb Raider had a remake called Tomb Raider Anniversary on the PS2, which was a completely redone of the original game. I never
actually terrible. I mean,
I never played it. I never played that one.
That one might. Yeah, I probably didn't either. I'm assuming there's probably no way I could go back to that after the newest version of it. But I'm assuming it probably was much better than the original PS1.
Oh, definitely. And Jason, he says Final Fantasy VI on the iOS. I love the updated graphics. And, it's funny. I feel like, Jason, if you're listening, I feel like you and I are a minority, because a lot of, really weird Final Fantasy purists, hate the new, the palette on the sprites and stuff, because they redid the sprites and they're like, oh, they look horrible. Oh, it looks great to me. It looks nice. I don't mind the new updated graphics on Final Fantasy VI at all. And Jared Burns says Final Fantasy Origins and DuckTales Remastered. And yes, Final Fantasy Origins was another really, really good remake. It was on the PlayStation 1. It was Final Fantasy 1 and 2. They also remade it and put it on the GBA with Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls. Really, really cool stuff.
Couple versions too on the PSP. I know of 1 and 2. I think one time I had sent you a version of 2.
Yep.
Because I remember I got it and I was like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna play this, but I have the version of 1. I'm a huge fan of I still love Final Fantasy 1. Is still my favorite Final Fantasy. So any different version of that is always cool. And now when it's come out quite a bit.
Awesome. Now, James, I'm gonna put you on the spot. So in your opinion, what is a really good remake video game?
Yakuza Kiwami.
I can't argue with that. Nope.
I could be cheap. I can throw that one out too. Like I said, though, I've yet to play it. I know it will be awesome. Another one though, in the same vein, connected to it, as I've brought up many times before. Going back to the GBA once again, River City Ransom. That version on the GBA, very cool, man. They took the 8-bit version, added in. Doesn't really have the co-op function, but you do have a AI character that's always running around screen. That is not that bad, and it's just good old River City Ransom. It's a good beat 'em up, much like Yakuza. I kind of interchange them from different points in my life. That's just a progression of that game. You can stop and eat good food. You can play games. You can read books. All kinds of fun things. GBA, got to go back to just being one of the kings of a remake. It had so many of our favorite Super NES titles and some NES ones just kind of brought to new life on it. I think a lot of these are probably available on the 3DS for many people that have those, and you can go onto those and try them out now, or get an old GBA SP. They're coming more and more available, whether you go the old way, whether it's on Wii U. It's going to be some more. Looking forward to what they're going to do with the Switch Virtual Console. It's kind of a little bit lacking at the moment, but I know it'll come up. And I'm sure there'll be many great remakes on there. And one more odd one I'm going to throw out there was a Contra Adventure that was on the Wii. I don't know if they ever put it on anything else.
I don't think they did.
Any of those, whether it was the Contra Adventure, Castlevania Adventure, very cool series of Konami games. Blaster Master, got to give out shout out to it on the Switch too. Also, it's on there, but there was this whole series of games on the Wii, which I hope don't really kind of get lost in time because they were all really kind of remakes. Contra very much followed the original version of it. It had some differences in it, but man, to go back and play those, I know me and you talked about the Castlevania Adventure many times. It's not necessarily a remake of the Game Boy Castlevania Adventure, as it is just kind of more of a redoing of the just original Castlevania. But Konami did a string of those games. They had a Gradius one on there too, and like I said, Blaster Master got in there. A really awesome slew of pseudo remakes that I kind of hope. Man, dude, that would be a really dope like Switch compilation to me. If that came out with those games on there, I would totally buy all those again because I really think a lot of people missed out on those just because it was just kind of an odd thing, on the Wii store, and now that's a couple generations old now. I'd really love to see those come back and not be lost. That really would be a shame because they were all like just super fun. It brought that old school feel, but it had a newer graphic. Those are all great. Shouts out to all those WiiWare games that came out because they were really, really good remakes. In just kind of a sense to me.
Now I'm gonna throw a curveball for my favorite remake. This is a total curveball, and I was thinking, I'm like, is this gonna count? I think it's gonna count. My favorite remake, Super Castlevania 4. It was it's still Simon Belmont. It's pretty much a remake of the first Castlevania. The bosses are a little different. The game, the stages are a little different. It's pretty much a whole new game. It's just Simon Belmont, but I can count that as a remake. It's a revision of Simon Belmont's adventures. And
no, you got it. It is.
Yep.
It's widely known as like pretty much just a redoing of the first one. So I'd say that totally counts and super sweet too.
Yeah, it's one of the best Castlevanias of all time. Arguably, a lot of people believe it's like the best stage-based Vania, because you have the Metroidvania, which Symphony of Night just takes that over, Yeah,
it's tough to beat that. I mean, Super Castlevania 4, in retrospect, if you've played Rondo or even Dracula X, it looks a little crappy, but damn it, it's still got something there that is super awesome.
Indeed. Now, before we close the show, let's get into games we've been playing recently. My list is going to be kind of short because I've been going balls deep into 2 titles, and that's about it. One of them, of course, was Yakuza Kiwami. I made it to chapter 5, and then I was like, oh man, I need to slow down. I was just blazing through the story because I was getting into the story, and then I started playing some of the mini games. The Pocket Circuit is back from Yakuza 0. I spent some time playing that. They also have, the Club Sega. I went there. A matter of fact, when I was able to actually go and adventure off and go through the town, that was the first place I wanted to go to inside was Club Sega. And unfortunately, there's no Sega games to play at the arcade, unlike 0.
No?
There's no games. Yeah. There's no games. You can play the UFO, and they added this new mini game, which is it's a card game, okay? And it's a card game because this kid made it into a card game. They're pretty much these cards that you collect throughout the game that you find on the ground, and they're like these really hot chicks in bikinis, and they wear bug outfits. You have Siren Beetle, and it's this chick in a bikini wearing a horned beetle helmet. And you collect all these different cards, and then you go into a fight, and it's pretty much like rock, paper, scissors, but when it shows it, it's like a 2D, or not 2D, but it's like Dead or Alive version fight, and you're sitting there selecting your cards. It's a lot of fun. I've been playing that, and I took a break from that because I've been playing a lot of another game that I'm almost done with, and that was Mario Rabbids. And I did a first impressions video on my YouTube channel, and Mario Rabbids, dude, it blew me away. It surprised me so much. I mean, you guys know, if you've been listening to me for a while, I'm not a huge fan of Ubisoft, but Ubisoft knocked it out of the park. I got to give credit where credit's due. They did a really good job with this game. This is probably my favorite Ubisoft game since South Park Stick of Truth, and that came out back in like 2014. Really, really fun game. Really, really cool. You know, it's a strategy-based game. If you're familiar with games like, they compare it a lot to XCOM or like Final Fantasy Tactics, kind of like in that vein where, you know, you have certain areas where you can move your character, and each character has their own like little class and stuff. Sounds superly complicated, but it's actually very easy to pick up, and it's addictive. I mean, I played it one day. I played it for like 8 hours straight. I wasn't planning on playing it that long. I was off that day, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to play a little Mario Rabbids. Before I knew it, it was like 8 hours that went by. So that's what I've been playing. I've been really enjoying that, and that's pretty much the gist of what games I've been playing.
Yeah, mine. I've just been hitting more in Yakuza 0. Like I said, I took about a 2-month break. Been jumping back on, and almost done with that. And then I'm going to jump into probably Kiwami. That's usually how it happens for me. Like, I'll take a long break. By the time I finish the game, a new one comes out, and just kind of used to that cycle. I did pick up Mario Rabbids. Played a little bit of that, and what I did play, I really did like. You know, it was fun. It's kind of got that feel of, Advanced Wars.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the closest thing to me that I can think of. I was kind of surprised it didn't have online play, but definitely still one that, it's got a really cool, single-player mode, and I imagine it would be really cool and easy to bust out, on the go and play. Kind of like how this, Switch is meant to do. That would be a really fun one to sit around, and play. I'm curious to see how it'd be, with the couch kind of co-op versus been doing that. And then, like I said, I try to slide in the gaming in between playing with my new kitten, which is, very, very energizing right there, Takes lots of throwing around little mice and things like that. So trying to switch in the stuff when I can. So
no pun intended.
Yeah. Switching it around. And but I try to fit it in. I still got some games on my Switch. I got the Fast RMX and a couple other titles. I was like, I pretty much forgot I even bought them. And I was like, man. So just looking forward to a lot of games I haven't had time to play, to getting into and trying them out hopefully soon enough.
Indeed. And yeah, I mean, I've been just focusing on those two games. I beat Wonder Boy, the HD. I beat that, and the week before that I beat Sonic Mania. So I've been really on this thing where I've been playing just one game and just trying to go at it. My goal right now is to beat Mario Rabbids before Mario Odyssey comes out. That comes out next month, and that's the next game I'm going to get. I've been kind of a little bit more slack about buying games and playing a little bit of here, there, and everywhere. Just been kind of just focusing on one thing, and it's been really rewarding, to be honest. It feels good to just play a game and beat it. I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of times my ADD comes in, and I'll play a little bit of this, play a little bit of that, and I'll put a game on the shelf and I won't pick it back up. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I'll probably get back to Yakuza Kiwami very soon. Again, that's just one of those games though that I could pick up 2 weeks from now, and I would have just as much enjoyment as I did last week when I played, a whole day's worth of it and ended up in Chapter 5. I'm like, there's only 12 chapters. I'm like, whoa, dude, whoa. So. Yeah,
you gotta learn to BS a little bit more,
Yeah, I know. That's what you were telling me. I remember we were talking about, I'm like, man, I'm already on Chapter 5. I'm like, you were like, dude, you need to BS a little bit more. And I'm like, well, maybe you're right. So I started doing some side quests and stuff like that. And I mean, that's really where the game shines a lot, is side questing. Even for people who don't like doing side quests, they are fun. They're a lot of fun. Very, very funny.
Yeah, always that's where you get the crazy, like, funny stuff, too, is from those, It's very... And if you get to one that's just not fun, it's like, yeah, just don't do it. Go on to something else. Another one will pop up.
There's plenty of them.
The original was, time-based, certain time, certain area. This one now, they're all available, kind of like they were in like 0 and the later, versions even after 1. 1, even when I played through it, I missed like so much. So it's gonna be really cool to go through this one. And for me, I'm planning to try to, knock out all the side missions. So it's out there. It's one of those games you can play how you want. That's the great thing about it.
Indeed, indeed. And I want to thank you guys for listening to another episode of Xsgaming Podcast. And again, follow us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group page. That's facebook.com/XS... I'm sorry. Rewind. Facebook.com/group/Xsgaming Podcast. You guys can join our group. If you have a YouTube channel, feel free to share your content. Everyone else does. And... And also, check out my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Xander Skullion. I got a new episode of Games You Should Check Out, episode 8 coming up. And I'm also going to be working on some other videos. I've been kind of taking a little bit of break with all the hurricane stuff that's been going on. I haven't really felt like getting in front of the camera and wasting time editing and stuff. But anyway, guys, as always, thanks for listening. And as always, happy gaming.
Have a pleasant evening, everybody.